Welcome to Just Mitchin, everybody. I'm Mitchin. I'm your host. We got Abe here and our very, very talented and beautiful guest, Lauren Taylor. Lauren, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, thank you. Abe, how you doing?
Great. It's been a
I always
good
ask you
week. It's
that.
been really hot, and also we haven't recorded in a while, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's been what? Uh, I recorded on Thursday, and you haven't recorded since Wednesday.
Yeah, last Wednesday.
That's crazy. And then, Lauren, your Joe Kelly photo, your picture was so awesome that you drew the other night. I thought that. Where did that? Did
The
it
Joe
just you saw
Kelly.
it? Yeah, the Joe Kelly. Like, how did that inspiration happen?
It had to come down today.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It
well,
had
we
to
could.
come down everywhere, unfortunately.
Oh
Yeah, I tried to make it as PG as possible. But yeah, it's just how I kind of work. Like I'll be watching a game and I laughed so hard when he did that pout face. So hard that I was instantly started working on it and pretty much pulled an all-nighter. Got it done yesterday at about right around like 12:30. Posted it right away. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to come down. But usually, I have a free reign over any original I want. But yeah, there's the Players Association represents all players, right? Astros
right.
too. So there's a lot of funny shirts and things going around right now. So I think they're just trying to slow. The whole issue was the head going. So
Right.
you know.
I mean, his suspension, 8 games, it's like 21.6 games in a regular season. I understand. I kind of understand it. 96-mile-an-hour fastball to the dome. That's,
Yeah, I'm speculating only, but my thought is too that obviously everyone's aiming for the Astros a little.
Yeah.
And I think they're my thoughts, and again, this is speculation, not anything I've heard from anyone official, but is they're probably trying to really like give a serious like, hey, we're taking this serious. If you guys, are gonna target the Astros, like there's going to be some repercussions. Because I imagine if there wasn't any of that, it'd start to get a bit crazy. And I think the glorification of how funny that Joe Kelly moment was, I don't think was necessarily about throwing at the head. It was more his hilarious childlike pout face that I will think is funny forever, ever and ever. But yeah, I think that's more the issue with it. So.
And I mean, third, he lost control as a 3-0. Like, I don't really think he might have was going for the head. Maybe it was the body, and he had no control there.
I mean, the man broke his own window in his backyard. So
I saw that.
I always joke, I'm like, he might have been shooting for the ankles. Like, you just don't know with Joe Kelly. Like, that's
right.
But he's also legendary when it comes to, he just doesn't back down. So, but yeah, I laughed when everyone's like, oh, for sure aiming for the head. I'm like, not for sure. Like, he also was aiming for a net and broke his own window.
So with a painting like that,
Yep.
how long does it take you? Like, what's your whole process? Like, how many hours does that take?
That one went smooth. So I was done. I took a little tiny break at about, I don't always pull all-nighters, but on something like that where I know it's going to be big the next day, I tend to try and capitalize on the moment. So I went to sleep for about an hour at 4 just because my eyes hurt, but kind of worked through that in about, I would say, 14 hours. And that's from start to finish with no hiccups. Like the design just came to me. Doesn't always happen that way. I've had a Tony Gwynn on my desk for like 3 months. So, it just kind of depends if I get a vision of how I want to do it and it works out versus I get a vision and it doesn't quite work and then I can't think of something. So it varies greatly. That just happened to be one that went smoothly, and that's always nice. Like, especially in moments like World Series or big playoffs or things like that where I want to create in the moment. It's really frustrating when I hit a creative block during those times. So.
No, and the detail you can get into your art is absolutely amazing. Like, I like how like you get the stitching into the hat. Like, people miss those kind of like little things that I think like a huge like a baseball fan goes in and looks at. Like, I definitely was like looking at the photo, like getting like up on like his face, like in his glasses, and then I saw the hat, and I'm like, I appreciate that. Like, being like, because I'm one of those people that likes to look for the little things. Like, I'm a jersey guy. I almost wear a jersey every day. Like, I like to look for this stuff.
And that's kind of the hope, is like the more you look at it, the more you see. And the trick of that is like, I could have made the hat more obvious that it was a fan waving the huge Dodgers fan on top of the dugout, but then it takes away from the glasses and there's too much to look at. So the hope is to make it like really kind of blend in as much as possible with one thing that pops, which in that was kind of the Dodgers flag, which then kind of draws you to look closer. You see the stitching, you see hopefully you can eventually, it's one of those things where like when you look at it from afar, you can see that it's a guy waving a flag, but when you look at it too closely, you're like, what's happening? So yeah, and then obviously crystal clear would be the pout face, because
And the glasses.
that deserves its own glorious.
It's beautiful. What inspired you to like have like a portrait of somebody and then put like stuff inside, like their jerseys or their glasses or their hats? Like, it's so unique.
Good question. I get asked this a lot. Rejection, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I approached, and I have no ill feelings about this anymore, but I approached Topps a few years ago when I first started kind of getting into sports art and was like, showing my art. And this is when I first started kind of getting into that mixed media digital stencil instead of just pencil drawings. There's not a big market for pencil drawings. And yeah, I kind of thought I was going to get some sort of gig. And then at the end, it ended up, I will never forget the last sentence, like, a layman hobbyist can do what you did or what you do. And it stung. Like, I was like, ouch, like, okay. And it really made me take a step back. And at first I was like, I'm done doing art. Like, I still had a good career at that point. I hadn't even considered quitting. It was just like, all right, well, it's just going to be something for fun I do on the side. And then I'm kind of competitive and I get a bit of a chip on my shoulder about stuff. And that's when I was like, you know what, forget that. Like, I'm going to find a way to make it so that people have to, it's unique and it's not just something anyone can do, or maybe they can, but it hasn't been thought of yet. So it started with a Felix Hernandez piece. I went to the Mariners, bought an expensive camera, like the most optical zoom you can get in a camera without a media pass. And then I sat right alongside the dugout of the Mariners and started taking photos and was like, I'm going to work with these photos so that way I'm not dependent on anyone else's like photo references. And I took a picture of Felix Hernandez, and you can kind of see his, him and Diaz had kind of the cool haircuts, and he had his, he wasn't playing that, he wasn't pitching that day. He had kind of this fancy glasses, and I was like, okay, I really want to focus in on those sunglasses and what you can see, which in the photo you could see, at the time was Safeco. Now it's terrible. So yeah, not so much pink, and that would have really clashed with all the colors I had. But so I started focusing on that, and then I was like, moved on to Chris Sale and Mookie Betts, and I was like, okay, I want this to be more fun. I want to show all the strikeout signs for Chris Sale that they hang up in, on the Green Monster, and then I want to show, Fenway Park and Mookie Betts' glasses at the time. So it just kind of started evolving. I've got better at putting images within images. And yeah, that's kind of how it started, was just like, all right, that was harsh. And how can I prove you wrong for the rest of my career?
That goes into another follow-up question I have is,
yeah,
being a woman in kind of a male-dominated industry, how does that chip on your shoulder like go like with your competitiveness? Do you get asked stupid questions from like fans and stuff?
Oh yeah, like most are great. Like most people that actually follow my stuff and from start to finish are wonderful. But you always have questions. And I kind of said this with my interview with Blake the other night. Like, right, you're always questioned. No one thinks you actually understand baseball. Like, you're just faking it because you think they look good in those pants and you want to sound cool in a bar. Like that's just the general assumption. Like, we don't actually understand. And so, the fact that I know more about baseball than most men, especially in Canada, like it doesn't compute for some. It's like, no, there's no way. You think you do, but let me explain to you what an infield fly rule is. Like, let me help. So it's like, I've played all my life. I played college fast pitch. Like, I love the game. So what's kind of happened for me is like, if you look at my art, the more that I've started to intertwine like different images, I try and tell a story And if I knew nothing about baseball, it'd be really hard to do. And I know that because people ask me to do soccer pieces, and I don't know enough about soccer, and I can't create the same cool piece because I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't understand the history. I don't understand, that's one sport I don't know a lot about. So it is tough. You're constantly questioned, and it'll be that way probably for a while. But there's women like, Jessica Kleinschmidt. There's Claudia, she's from Brazil. She does art. There's lots of people that are now getting into broadcasting as well as art and various other things.
In Project 2020.
Absolutely. Yep. And if you look at it's Erin Andrews, right?
Yeah, Erin Andrews.
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time, I was so excited that she was there, but she was a sex symbol. She's not a reporter. And that's unfortunate because she's so good at what she does. And she should be recognized for the right things, but she's not always. And so that's always kind of a challenge. It's like, you still get those creepy messages, and if you don't get the creepy ones, you get but do you really understand baseball? Like those ones. So, but like I said, most people that have been following my art for a while, I don't get questioned. We just talk baseball, and that's all it should be,
Right. No, being a giant baseball fan, like the first time I saw your art, I was like, she understands it. Like the little nuances you'll put in a jersey, and inside the jersey, or the little I love the Ted Williams one, the Seat 21. Yeah, that one's awesome because not too many people know that story.
Yep.
And, you look at the picture, I didn't know too much about the story. I knew that there was a red seat in Fenway, and then I saw your art with it. Then I had to Google all about it. Then I end up.
That's kind of my hope too, is that people start to learn. With the Hank Aaron one, I put the Indianapolis Clowns very subtly in his jersey, and people are like, "Why does it say clown in his jersey?" And then they look it up and they learn a little bit about the Negro Leagues and how that's how he started. And he was, that's where the scouts found him, and he didn't spend a lot of time there, but that was, the year they did so well. And so, the idea is people will, if you don't already know, maybe you'll be like, what is that? And you'll look it up. So, but yeah, I get asked questions. There was honestly a guy that rambled off a bunch of questions to me once. That was I'm repeating myself from Blake's interview, but it was what's Kershaw's ERA from a senior in high school? I'm not a Rain Man. I don't have that memory. I'll do what everyone else would do. I'll Google it and I'll let you know. It just cracks me up. If I don't know that off the top of my head, or they'll be like, who was the relief pitcher in 1937 and you're like, I don't need to answer that to prove to you that I like baseball. So it's kind of those things, but I've learned to just laugh at it. It's oh, okay, well, let me just Google it because that's what everyone else would do.
Right.
And I'm sure that's what you're doing too, sir.
Yeah, no, we all do it.
Yeah.
Stuff I can't remember with baseball all the time, especially with we're in the StatCast era and sabermetrics and analytics. It's so hard to keep up with the big.
You're getting so many analytics. But as a female, if I don't know them, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's my only kind of still annoying beat. And there's a couple Jessica Kleinschmidt, she jokes a lot on her Twitter I only love baseball for the baseball pants. It's stuff like that. Because that's kind of but like I said, most people are really great, and I'm very appreciative that most people understand that you can love baseball and be very knowledgeable in it no matter what gender. So
yeah, no matter who you are. Where does that love of baseball come from? And softball as well.
Yeah, so I fell in love with baseball. So I grew up in Seattle during the 90s team. Ken Griffey Jr. was my idol. And I was always loved sports, kind of, just started to love baseball, and fell in love with the Mariners and that whole team and got really into that. And then, yeah, it was just, that sport that just clicked for me. I liked that it was a team sport, but it was such a challenge. And I say this a lot, there's so much beauty in baseball, and people don't understand sometimes that don't play it. How much, I get so much enjoyment out of seeing a double, a hot shot to a shortstop that takes that third bounce, because good luck. When you are, that third bounce is when it gets nasty. You're probably going to wear it. And so I love watching little things do they take a step forward or do they take a step back and try and square up, and then recover from a bounce off their chest. Granted, not everyone's playing on the same type of fields. Most of us do, where you literally die from a bounce. But, like that's what I really fell in love with. And then swings, like how you think of one thing differently, like driving the handle through the pitch instead of just swinging, and suddenly you're hitting a line drive up the gap instead of striking out. Like it's these subtle little changes that I just found so fascinating, that those little things make or break you as a player. And yeah, it was constantly a search to find the next best thing. And I think that's what always kept me interested. Like people say it's a boring game, but to me it was like, no, it's not. Like, it's not at all. Like, wait till you have a couple bounces coming at you, or the grass is wet in the outfield and there's like a hot skip coming at your shins at 100 miles an hour, or, like you're trying to hit, bunt a rise ball. Bane of my existence in college. I get anxiety just thinking of the bunt sign.
I couldn't bunt.
Instant anxiety. Like,
I think a lot of
are you sure? Are you sure you want me to do that? Like, and then of course, never fails. You get a rise ball, and it's like, okay, just try not to pop this out and get a double play and have everyone stare at me on my walk of shame back to the dugout. So yeah, I just love all the little microscopic changes that make a big difference. So
I think that's also what's so great about baseball. And like a lot of the people that say it is boring don't see the little things like that people that have played do. And, just stuff like, people running on the base paths, or like, why is this guy stealing or getting caught in a rundown because, they want to move the runners over, like whatever it may be.
They're stalling long enough to see if they can get that runner across the plate before
right.
they're I love that. Hit and runs are like, I did love hit and runs. But those are fun because it's like the batter has one job, and I love when the pitch isn't great, but it's good enough. And seeing them try and put a bat on that while the other runner's like, please God, hit this.
Yeah.
I will forever love those little things. And I kind of like this shortened season with the 2-out thing, because you're seeing the finesse of the game a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up,
hit and runs. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was like, I hated hit and runs. I'm a pitcher. So that was like the worst thing ever. Lefty pitcher, someone's hitting run on me.
Throw one like above the head, because then as a batter, you're like, nah, like you don't, it throws you off. You're supposed to swing at it, but that's a real bad pitch. Like, yeah.
That happened already. Like, so I was like Joe Kelly. Sometimes I just didn't know where the ball was gonna go, and I was hitting like high 80s, so I was like scared. I was like, I don't want to kill anybody.
Yeah, you don't want to hit anyone.
Yeah.
Right,
so growing up in Seattle,
Yeah.
How did you become a Red Sox fan?
Yeah, how'd you become a Red Sox fan, Warren? Like, represent.
I know. This, I feel like I feel bad saying this because I realize like I'm going to get an eye roll, but I will forever love the Mariners until they play the Red Sox in a playoff. Like I will always have a soft spot for the Mariners. And the more that I do art, like the Mets I love too, but not right now, not right this second because we're playing them. But, Red Sox came about from, I dated a Red Sox fan. My roommate was a Red Sox fan. It just kind of was like, and I already didn't like the Yankees very much. So it was like, it just was natural. Now that I do art of all players, though, I've learned to kind of respect like I now more respect players, even if they're on a team I don't like, but I still cheer for certain teams. But I can respect the strength and the talent Stanton has, or, DJ LeMahieu last year, totally amazing what he did, with just getting on. Like, I can respect that, but I'm not going to cheer for the Yankees necessarily. Does that make sense? Like,
no, yeah, because at the same time, like, you respect it, but you hate it because you're like, oh, God, Stanton's up, Judge is up. What are they going to do?
And at the end of the day, I still need to make art of all the teams, so I can't be too upset. And they were actually the few Yankees players that I delivered to were really hard to not like in person, which is frustrating.
How was CeCe? That was like one of the things when I saw that.
Nice. But, I mean, so nice. Like, Robbie Cano will forever be, like, someone very special to me, someone I'm very grateful for.
That's what I'm wearing right now.
What's that?
I'm wearing Cano.
Awesome.
Yeah.
People love to rip on Cano, and I know he got in a little trouble with the PEDs, whatever, but, what he did for my art career was huge, and he was also, the other cool thing is like, so he paid for that art and to get me there with it. And he easily could have just taken the art and said, adios, like, thanks for delivering that. But instead, it's like he wanted me a part of every step. And then when CC received it, he wanted me in the room with him and said, this is who did the art. Like, you know, so he was, I will forever have respect for that man. And he's done a lot to help me in terms of getting in touch with other athletes. And CC was really nice, though. He was, you know, I think he was amazed at the gift in general that Robbie had gone out of his way to get him, as well as like just really kind, you know. And again, as a Red Sox fan, I was so conflicted. I was like, dang it, you're really great. Oh man. Oh, like, yeah. So, you know, again, like I respect both those guys a lot. And it was really cool how Robbie involved me in the whole process and was like, I think there's a little video I posted of it that went up on like social on Rock Nation. And then I think on CC's Instagram too, where you see him turn to me and Robbie says, she's the one that made this. And then he asks, like, he's like, this is really dope. And then asks a couple questions. And it's like, Cano didn't have to do that.
Right.
You know, could just receive the gift, said, thank you, here's a ticket to the game, enjoy yourself, adios. But, you know, and he even took the time to sit down with me after the game and be like, these are some ideas I have for you on how you could reach players, like out of his way kind. So good for you for wearing a Cano jersey. I have a Mets Cano jersey, and it was a little hard to find in New York last year because he was not as loved as I loved him.
Yeah, I think this is the only one that I've bought from the team store because I have 4. I have one game worn from some like relief pitcher I've never even heard of, and then I have a team issued one I found on eBay, and then my other one's an Ichiro, like Russell Ichiro from like 2001 that I found on eBay, and I was like, oh, I have to buy that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just have a couple jerseys, and I try and wear something that if I'm delivering to a team, I try and represent that team out of respect, and you know, plus, I mean, it's nice. And yeah, so I have a lot of team shirts. Be very, if you went through my clothing closet, you'd be like, what team do you like? Like, what the hell? Like, you're so confused.
Mine's all Packers, all Blazers, and all Mariners. It's like the only shirts I own.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, it's like, ooh, today I guess I'm going to be an Alabama fan. I have this shirt from this one time. And then tomorrow it's like, oh, I'm a Braves fan today, I guess, because this is clean. So, yeah, you know, I've learned to love baseball as a whole, and I will always love the Red Sox and the Mariners, but I've learned to respect a lot of, like, individual players, too.
Awesome. So we're going to kind of jump into, like, the mental health part, but this is, like, part of your art, part of that. What got, like, how did your art career, like, grow? Like, how did you become an artist?
Okay, so I'll give you the clip notes. I got hit with a line drive in the face area, right, kind of like this whole area, about 4 years ago. It fractured a few different bones, including my maxilla, which is what I'm getting a lot of surgeries for right now. Missed a lot of misdiagnosed stuff, unfortunately. Canada's healthcare system is great, but sometimes things are missed, I guess. Sometimes big things are missed. But no, I have a lot of respect for the healthcare system here too. But yeah, so that happened, and I lost consciousness for, they said between 5 and 8 minutes. Of course, I don't remember. And I didn't really, I think it was some like weird justice of me thinking concussions were a mind state. Like, if you think you're fine, you'll be fine. And I had to eat my words for the last 4 years because they were delayed. But when I started, sorry, you good? Just make sure my dog's not like dying in her cone over here. The concussion symptoms were delayed for me. So I was released from the hospital, told I had no injuries, or no fractures, mild head trauma, even though both my eyes are swollen shut, and was fine. Go to sleep, you're good. Then the next day, obviously I wasn't fine. Went and got a CT scan. Like, this is a whole thing of like total missed things. But went to the ophthalmologist. Found out my retina was hemorrhaged, and then this eye was kind of doing like this kaleidoscope effect because literally my brain was confused. It was like, we work with two eyes. What's happening here? That's not the official medical term. That's my version of it. But it did. It looked like a kaleidoscope, and then I'd get sick, and I'd have to shut my eyes. My eye, the other one was already automatically shut for me. And about, I would say like a week into the injury, I started getting really nauseous. I couldn't eat, like could not eat. Nothing sounded good. Always felt car sick all the time. Ended up, my boss asked me to take a leave of work, a leave of absence. She's like, you can't be here. Like I was struggling with words. And then the mental health stuff got worse. So I have always had panic disorder and anxiety since probably 8 years old. Like, it's been a part of my life, but I worked really hard to kind of get it under control, did a lot of therapy, medication, combination of everything, and felt like I was in a pretty good place in 2016. Once I got hit in the head, everything changed. So it's like I went back to square one, plus depression, plus confusion, plus not knowing where I was when I'd wake up in the middle of the night, plus maybe even a little bit of PTSD. I don't know, like everything got crazy, and I started, oh God, going to the back. Sorry. So started learning more about traumatic brain injuries and how that can exacerbate mental health issues. Also suddenly couldn't play softball anymore. So as someone that's been an athlete since I was little, I totally lost my identity. I was like, I don't know who I am if I'm not an athlete, because that's all I did outside of work. So that's when I started making art of baseball players and of old baseball history stuff. And I did it so much that it started to get better. And it's how I started to kind of cope with some of the depression and anxiety and panic attacks I was experiencing. There's one on my page of like, I'm smiling, but in my actual head, you can see like, this is an art piece. You can see the brain, and there's someone in the fetal position.
I love that piece. I like totally connected with it when I saw it.
That's what a concussion felt like to me. Like,
right.
I was acting like everything was great, but like I did not know why nothing was functioning. Like I felt really weird and really depressed and really anxious all the time.
Frustrated.
Yeah, but I was like, after about 6 months, you're like, started to feel like those people that I thought were just kind of milking it. And that's where I think it's just karma that I thought that, because it's so not that. And it's so far from that. And I will use my platform as long as I can to try and make people like me pre-concussion understand that we don't know all the effects of concussions yet. We're still learning, and they can last especially when you're misdiagnosed and not treated properly. So yeah, I started making art of players, and James Paxton saw one of my pieces, as well as Ryan Dempster, old pitcher for the Mariners. I played beer league softball with his brother. So yeah, and I was like, this is kind of fun. And the next like year and a half, fast forward, total whirlwind, got some art out there, decided, all right, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna go for this. And I did, and it's been a crazy few years, but here I am. So
yeah, concussions are no joke, because that's my disorder. It's called functional neurological disorder. Basically, the neurons in my brain are fire for no reason because it's been injured, but the nervous system's messed up, but it doesn't show on the CT. Doesn't show on anything they can see. So they know something's broken, but they don't know exactly what it is or how to fix it. So
issue.
Yeah, like I don't walk well. Like around the house, I walk pretty well. But like when I have to go, like I go on a daily walk, I have to have a walker. Like never had that before. But like mine, 2016, is my last concussion. I've had plenty in my life, plenty of little ones. Played football, did MMA, been hit in the head a bunch. Drunk, fell out of a shopping cart, knocked myself out. Didn't know how bad it was.
Yeah.
Went home, fell asleep, woke up. Some of the symptoms I was dealing with, it went away, and like I went to work, started stuttering. I was like, I have to leave. Left,
Yep.
went and got Saul, and then they started kind of like some of the stuff I deal with like on a daily now. Like I dealt with like gait issues, talking issues, went away for 3 years, just dormant. All of a sudden, like I was a bartender and a server, so I was serving tables. I was a Red Robin. Life was kind of not great. Like very depressed, very anxiety. Never really. I've dealt with that my whole life too. Like I'm on the bipolar spectrum. Was a very anxious kid, very volatile kid. Like blew up really fast. Like dealt
Sure.
with that like most of
Big
my life.
extreme emotions. Very happy, very angry, very sad.
Yep. And like now it's out of control. It's better now that I'm on like the right medications. But like
Yep.
for a while, like when like we got into the disorder, I'd have days and I'd blow up. And the blow ups like usually they're like verbal at people, but then I implode. So then like I get mad at myself, and that's where like it got scary a few times because like I dented a hydro flask in my forehead, like just like stuff that I'm not there dealing with, and that's
Sure.
why like concussions are like because you don't sometimes right away you don't know what's going on, and like
No.
they can't diagnose it right. Like they told me it's anxiety. Like for the longest time it's anxiety. I had this horrible headache for 3 years, and the next thing I know, like I had a panic attack. Boom. And it's been a year and 4 months where I like if I have headphones on and stuff and like if I'm not talking to somebody in person like Zoom, I sound great. Off of
Yeah.
it, my voice is like something you wouldn't recognize. It's so odd, so weird.
Yeah.
And it's just all mental. But going into like enough about me.
I mean, it's really important, I think, for people to share stories like that because you know, I know my biggest frustration was every doctor had a different theory.
No, exactly.
And you're just kind of fumbling around. And it wasn't until I started listening to other people who had experienced concussions where I was like, yes, like that's what's happening to me. And that's when you stop feeling like you're crazy and you start wanting to figure out how to get better. Or if you can't get 100% better, how do you get to a place where you're comfortable? And I didn't get that in a doctor's office. I mean, I've seen specialists that I think have really truly dedicated their careers to understanding concussions, but if someone hasn't experienced it, I haven't quite felt the same kind of understanding as you do in a doctor's office. And that's frustrating when you're trying to go get help and a doctor's like, it should be better by now. And you're like, no,
Right.
but it's not. Well, the scan's clear. You don't have any bleeding on your brain. Well, I know, you know, it's like you said, it's, you know, your brain. Yeah. I've learned more about brain injury in the past 3 years than some doctors learn in a lifetime. I don't know anything else medical, nothing else, but I know a lot about that. And
a lot about the brain.
So, yeah. And the medication gauntlet is hell. It's like, everyone's got a damn opinion. They want to tell you shouldn't be on it. They want to tell you should be on it. They want to tell you big pharma. That's my favorite, big pharma. You know, where you're trying to get well, it's hard enough to accept that you need the help. And then have, you know, someone come at you and be like, you don't need to be on that. Have you tried green tea? And you're like, like green tea? Really? Like chamomile is not going to solve my problems right now, you know? And you start to get, have you tried yoga? Yes. Like I have a panic attack usually in the middle and have to leave, you know? So, you know, I think that was a really hard part for me was integrate, like accepting like, hey, you know what? Just like other illnesses need medication, like this is part of me getting better so that I can retrain my brain. And I think it's really helpful when people like you are brave enough to say, you know, I've been on medication, I've done this, I've done that, because until people do that, a lot of times the voice that's louder is the people telling you that big pharma's just trying to take your money, or you don't need that stuff, or it's addictive, you know. So, and that's when you get self-medicating and, you know, a whole other host of problems. So I think it's very brave of you that you're willing to say that. And I do appreciate that because I know it's hard to say sometimes.
For me, it was hard to like, because they kept saying like, well, it's F&D and like a lot of I've seen 3 neurologists and they're all like, it's because of your anxiety and depression. And I'm like, you're missing the whole concussion part. Like they're not listening to me. And then I've got so lucky. My physical therapist, his name's Marvin Smith out of OHSU. He is a miracle worker. I can go in there with my walker, barely able to walk, can't like form any words, and I'll be in there for an hour with him, and he gets me like walking pretty great, talking like this.
That's
and
amazing.
Just by like his demeanor and like the games we play, because he knows I come from I've been an athlete my whole life. So now I can't be an athlete. Like, I mean, you throw something at me, I'll catch it. I won't be able to throw it back guarantee.
Sure.
Like my brain won't want to do it. It'll throw it that way though, like 50 miles an hour. Just go the other way. Like it's
Joe
so.
Kelly.
Like a funny story was 2 nights ago.
I don't think he heard you.
I don't even know. That was funny.
Wait, what?
I said Joe Kelly, and then you just.
Kelly, yes. No,
We're Joe
I was trying to hand my stepdad like I think it was a cake mix box, and I couldn't get like I wanted to hand it to him, but I kept turning around and I was gonna throw it downstairs, and he's like, dude, he's like Mitchell, he's like, look at me, look at me. My mom finally said something, and like I finally processed through it, and it's the weirdest thing because you think it's in all well, it is all in your head, but you think you're crazy. Like you
Yeah.
think that like you can control it. Like for the first 6 months, I was like, I'll be this on myself. I don't need medicine. I don't need like too much help. We were doing like little things because my mom's a massage therapist, so she's like trying, and she's a fixer. She's like, we're
And
gonna.
you know
fix
what? Those little things add up. So even if they
Yeah.
don't change you overnight, like I can't stress enough, and I have to remember that too. Like little things like massage therapy, like you know, they do add up. So
Right.
that's awesome that you're taking those steps.
And it just finally like it was getting my depression was getting bad, so we got on medicine, and I did not like the Zoloft. I was on Zoloft. It was
That was the one I really struggled with. So
so before like I get into this, that is one of the reasons I wanted to interview. Once like I started like saw Blake was gonna interview, and I've been following your art for a while, then I got into your story, and I was like, this is the perfect person for me to like come and tell my story, because she gets it, because she's going through a lot of the similar things, and it's cool that you're from the Northwest and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, well, like, I know you don't think I understand baseball, but I do. So I
Yeah, I don't think you know anything, right?
I don't. I don't even know who the Mariners are. I had to Google it before I got on here real quick.
No, and it was just I went off the Zoloft cold turkey. Like I thought, because I always think I'm a mental giant and I can deal with those kind of things. I ended up in the mental hospital for 12 hours. Like 3 weeks later, I had a breakdown. My brother and I got into it. We haven't really talked since, but that's who says it's a whole other thing. But we got into it, and like I couldn't handle it. So I was like, Mom, I'm done. I was like, this disorder, everything, the headaches, I'm over life. And we went to the hospital. They put me in it. My stepmom, my dad and my mom and stepdad stayed with me the entire time. Like they won't leave my side. They've been like my number one supporters. They helped me with everything. And I worked kind of through it. I was like, I'm good. I'm not going to do anything stupid.
Yeah.
And then now I'm on like Wellbutrin and Cymbalta. I have to take medicine to sleep. Otherwise I'll stay up for like 48 hours.
Okay.
So now I'm like in therapy. I finally got into therapy like 2 months ago. That was the hardest one for me, was like, I don't like therapy.
It's hard at times. But yeah, I mean, and that's the trick. I think that a lot like concussions, we don't know what medications work for which people. Like there's, you know, for me, Zoloft wasn't helpful either. What ended up happening is it kept raising the dose, and I was like, this isn't working. And so I just kept feeling more of the side effect, but none of the positive. And yeah, I do the same thing. Like I'm going to quit cold turkey because I start to get angry at myself. Like, why do I need this? Like if everyone else, like I'm done, I'm not taking anymore. I'm going to stop tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you're like, you get the little eye zap things, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you start feeling horrific, and, you know, it's frustrating, and
can't focus.
Yeah, and I think there's not a lot of discussion around that. And I know when I first got on medication, there wasn't discussion about that with me in the doctor's office. So I didn't know. And so, you know, I was like, I've been anxious in a bit, so I'm just going to stop. It was when I was in college. I was like, I'm pretty broke right now. I'm not going to pay for that refill. I'm good. You know, and then all of a sudden, you plummet. And when you think about the fact that you're toying with your brain chemicals, it brings a new light into it. Like you do need to, you know, be a little bit careful. And I'm a operator for 1-800-SUICIDE, and you know, it breaks my heart how many people feel like they're at the end of their rope because they don't know how to talk about this stuff.
Right.
And it will forever be my biggest passion, and a lot of times the baseball thing has made my platform larger, and that's allowed me to talk to more people. And I will always love messages saying, I've decided to start getting some help more than the ones that it's like, oh, I got to deliver art to so-and-so, you know, because I know that's what I needed. Like I needed real people to be like, hey, this has happened to me. This is the journey I'm on. And by the way, hey, I take medication too. Or, you know what, I tried medication at one point and it only worked with me in conjunction with this. Or, you know, and it's the well-meaning people that try and tell you, you don't need that. You need to eat clean. You need to do yoga. You need chamomile tea and you're fine. You know, but some of us don't. Some of it, that's not enough. And
Right.
I think accepting that everybody's in a different situation and not pushing our own agendas on people in terms of what we think is real. Like the documentaries that talk about mental health medication make me cringe because I worry how many people then won't get the help because they think they're being duped by big pharma. And maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but like it's, you don't do yourself any good not to try everything, you know, not to try different avenues. And medication is not going to work for everyone, but it could save someone else's life. And I think your braveness, your courage to say like, hey, I've been on this, it didn't work. I tried this, it has worked enough, is so important because sometimes people are just hanging on to a little bit of hope that there's something else out there they can try. Because I don't know about you, but for a long time it came down to like, what else do I do? Like, I'm active, I eat healthy, I've seen a therapist, something's just not clicking. And you start to kind of give up hope a little bit, like, well, and for me, it's like, I have a cool career. I've got great dogs. I live in a beautiful city. And you start wondering like, what is wrong with you if you can't wake up thrilled or you can't wake up not anxious? And it's so helpful anytime someone has the courage to be like, that happens to me too. And every time something awful, like, you know, a celebrity ends their life, we're all like, well, why? They had, you know, with Kate Spade, it was like, well, why? She's sold and she has all this money. And Robin Williams, he's very successful. It's like, it's not about that. And helping people understand that it's not about that is so important. Like, it can literally happen to anyone, whether you're born with it, whether a concussion does it, whether a traumatic event does it, anyone is susceptible to it. And I love that you are willing to talk about it because we need more people to do that.
No, right. And it took me, like, I've always been open to tell people, like, I have a disorder and, like, that kind of stuff. But getting into it is, like, the most terrifying thing because it leaves you so vulnerable for, like, yeah, and for criticism, for anything.
And you're like, are we going to still talk tomorrow or is this it? Like,
right. Like,
are you going to ghost me tomorrow now? Because, yeah.
I've lost friends. I've lost really good friends, like, since I've got sick. Like, they just didn't want to be in my life anymore. And I'm like, and you go through that process, like, what's wrong with me? Like, why do you not want to be my friend? Like, we've been friends. And this person might watch it. They know I'm talking. They know if they're watching this, they know who they are. We were, but like this. Like, we went to Mariners games, like, drove up, like, just did it. And, like, yep. Probably, I think we hung out every day for like 3 years. We worked together. We did everything. And I got sick. Well, not sick. I had a disorder. I say sick, and I hate when I say that because I just don't know the right words. Like,
I hear you.
And like, that friendship died. But in the same, like, boat, I'm happy this disorder hit me at the same time. Like, it was kind of a gift from God in this really weird, messed up way because I was ground zero. Like, at that point in my life, before this all happened, I was depressed. My anxiety was horrible. I didn't like where I was at in my career. I went from running a bar to working at Red Robin as a server. Wasn't happy with that and was having really bad. My dad and I were in a really bad point in our relationship. And I was kind of at that point, like, didn't want to end it, but like, if I didn't wake up that one morning, I wouldn't have been too mad.
Sure.
And this disorder just, it happened. And it was the weirdest thing when everything, like, when I couldn't talk and the panic happened and I came home because I knew what was happening, that like my brain's messed up because I've kind of gone through some of it before. Right. And like, the hope when it all happens, you hope it's officially going to go away. It just hasn't. And the whole weight of the world fell off my shoulders. Like, once that happened, like, I was the happiest person because I don't know, like, something in my brain triggered, but definitely like, it's so weird to like say that out loud. Like, the disorder happened, I felt better, but it was like life can't life's not that bad. Like
Yep.
I'm dealing with something that's so unreal that I wouldn't want on my worst enemies like to ever have. And like that thought process in those like first couple of days where I was like, man, if I can deal with this, like I can deal with anything. And that was the kind of thing.
It helps me to think of it too as a way that like it's a gift in understanding in learning empathy. Like I don't think I'd be as empathetic of a person. I don't think I would be as giving as a person. I don't think I'd be as caring if I didn't understand how integral that has been to helping me. And I think there's a lot of beauty found in people that struggle with mental health because you learn to be more attuned to other people's needs because you know what it's like to not be seen and heard, right? So I think, yeah, I think it's most people that I've met that struggle are pretty special people. And, you know, I've lost friends too, and I no longer really, it always hurts a little bit, but at the same time, I don't really fret it anymore because they're not the right people for you, like, you know, and I've got friends that are so patient with me and understand me, and in return, I give the same to them about things. Like we all have things, right? Like maybe theirs is, you know, they keep going back to that same guy, and you are like, okay, but don't, like, and you know, and then you have a panic attack and you're like, am I dying? And they're like, you're not dying, you know, so you give and you take. And instead of, I used to view it as, and I still do, I still absolutely have these days where I view like, I am flawed as a human. Like I'm a glitch in the human race. Whereas now I see it as maybe I'm a glitch, but maybe it's something special. Like maybe it's an opportunity to speak about this stuff, or maybe it's an opportunity to, you know, be vulnerable in a way that helps others. And like I said, don't always feel like that every morning. Some mornings I am like down on myself, you know, very mad at myself for not being able just to like stop thinking about the same thing that keeps kicking around to a point where it turns into a panic attack. But, you know, I love seeing how kind of the domino effect when someone talks. Like Brian Johnson and Brock Holt said something finally with the Red Sox. And the second person I created art for and tried to reach was Brock Holt, because I remember him saying he deleted his Twitter, and because people were really cruel, he played hard. He got hit in the head a few times, got tagged in the head. And that's the funny thing about concussion. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a horrifying injury. It could be a small hit to your head that has the same symptoms as like someone that gets smoked in the face with a baseball. Like you just don't know. And he talked about how people were criticizing, and I don't want to like, don't put this in quotes because I loosely remember this, but you know, he had mentioned, right after I got hit in the head, so I might forget some things. But he had mentioned like how vertigo was constantly an issue for him, and he was still on the DL, and people, you know, fans are ruthless, right? Like we expect perfection out of players. Like you didn't hit 5 home runs today, loser. Like, you know, it's the same with being on the DL. They're like, oh, what a wuss. Like in hockey, because I live in Canada, in hockey, they're like, in hockey, you like cut your jugular with the skate and you just get back out there. Seriously. Like I saw a video of a goalie get hit in the throat.
Buffalo Sabres goalie, like 1986 or something.
And I was like, where am I? Like, you know, so there's this understanding that like athletes are being a wuss if they've got vertigo from a concussion, but it's so not that. Like it is, you know, Brock Holt talking about that was the first time I was like, wait a minute, that's happened to you too? Like you're still feeling weird after this and you have world-class doctors helping you? Huh. You know, and then Brian Johnson, he and I had a brief chat, and he's talked very openly about his anxiety and panic attacks. There's other athletes that have, you know, the Philadelphia Eagles player that, you know, threw up before every game and one day just couldn't, I can't remember his name now. Because I don't understand sports or no names, so I'll have to look that up. But
like Rick Yankiel too.
What's that?
Rick Yankiel, he's another guy.
Yeah, and Rob Lowe as well had his first panic attack. Not Rob Lowe, I just said Rob Lowe because I was just watching Parks and Recreation.
Kevin Love was
Thank
one of
you.
them.
Kevin Love, not Robin Love. See, I just did that whole female stereotype all by myself. I was literally just watching Parks and Recreation. But his, I know. I just, you know, at this point, I don't even. You can think I don't know sports. I did that to myself. But his story about how he experienced his first panic attack and how it happened on the court, and now he's donated to mental health. Like, that is what we need from these people that we put on a pedestal, because that's what kids need to know. Kids need to understand that a panic attack doesn't mean they can't play in the NBA. It doesn't mean that, you know, depression doesn't mean that they can't be, you know, a doctor or whatever their big goals are. Like, these people struggle with it too. It's just we all get comfortable hiding behind a mask because we think we're not going to be as successful if someone knows this about us. So I have the utmost respect for athletes that have decided to be like, you know what, I'm just going to be honest about this, because it's just critical to our youth. I really feel like, and adults too, but especially our youth. Like, you know what, it's okay. It's just who you are, and you learn to deal with it. And it's like, I remember someone explained it to me. It's like being in the ocean and like huge waves come in. We've all been there, where you're like, shit, is this going to break on me, or do I need to like, you know,
Yeah.
like a moment, and then the tide pulls you and you can't walk back fast enough. So you're like, well, I'm going to die. And so, you know, you either dive in with it and get out the other side, or you just stand there and let it pummel you. And for the longest time, I'd do that. I'd fight the panic, and it would just crash on me every time. And then I learned, okay, I've got some tools.
What tools do you use?
What's that?
What grounding tools do you use? Cut you off.
No. It depends on kind of what I'm panicking about. The Calm app has been helpful for me if it's just like general overthinking that hasn't turned into like, I can't breathe in the grocery store. When I'm at that point, I need to get out of wherever I'm at and cut off stimulation. So like, be alone. Headphones are helpful. There's a song called Weightless by McCorney Union, I think is the name of it. And it's been proven to lower anxiety. So I always have that. I always have headphones and that on my phone. And then simple things, counting. So 5 things I see, 4 things I can touch, you know, things like that, where I kind of try and break the cycle of my brain being like, you can't breathe. And it's hit and miss. Like 2 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm crushing this. And the next 2 minutes, I'm like, I'm dying again, you know? So and sometimes it gets to the point where it's like, you know what? It's a sublingual Ativan. I'm not winning this one, you know? And that's what I do. So, you know, tools I think are really helpful to learn, and they're not perfect, but the more you collect, the more, you know, you kind of like, you learn to not get absolutely crushed by the wave. You might get a little rocked, but you know, you get it. You start to understand like the way, okay, it's been a stressful week. I'm going to see some more waves this week, and I need to be prepared for that. I need to rest more. I need to, you know, maybe take an afternoon nap, reset myself. So yeah, I think it's all about just learning yourself and understanding and doing it with compassion, understanding there's nothing wrong with you for needing to learn those things.
Yeah, no, that was probably like going back a little bit into like what you were saying was like compassion and empathy have always kind of been a thing I've struggled with. I got bullied really bad growing up. I was one of those kids that always got bullied because our generation, I'm 28, you're 32, so we're in the same generation. Our parents didn't really, or like our parents and like everybody else didn't understand mental health that much. It was like, that kid's just anxious, or that kid's shy, or he's too loud, he's too loud or too hyper. Well, I was the kid who was loud and always wanting the attention because I was so panicky and didn't know how to be. So instead of like putting it all in, I was like putting it all out because I was that person, and I got picked on for it a lot. And that was, and then so as I got older, I was like, gosh, my empathy just went away, my compassion towards people. And especially like in this last year, like just learning more about myself and learning more like, gosh, people deal with stuff that I deal with, or worse things that I have to deal with every day. Maybe I should give that person a little more than I am, a little bit more compassion, a little bit more empathy. Because my mom, my entire life, like, you need more empathy, you need more compassion. The world isn't black and white. And I'm like,
and you just, some people, they're issues manifest differently. And I've tried to remember that with COVID because it's hard. You know, you see people debate back and forth, and it's like, well, a lot of it's driven by their own issues and their own struggles. And when you can kind of look at it like that and not engage or not take it as like, I start to think of it like maybe they're anxious and that's how they project, or maybe that's how they're dealing with stress, or it helps me not get fired up every time I see a post where I'm like, what? You know, in my mind, I just don't respond anymore. Like I don't, because yeah, we're all just doing the best we can most of the time, you know, and some people could do a little better, you know, they could work a little harder on themselves in terms of a little, you know, understanding of like other people's needs. But for the most part, it's weird out there, especially right now. There's just a lot going on.
Right.
So, you know, I think, yeah, compassion's a key in everything. And I'm trying to learn it with others as well, but also with myself, not getting mad at myself for being, you know, as I call it, a little neurotic sometimes, a little weird about things. You know, especially when I'm like anxious, all of a sudden I hear everything super loudly. And I swear to God, if you drink water within 10 feet of me when I'm anxious, I will be like, do you need to drink it that loud? And it's like, oh.
So
I'm not a good person sometimes when, you know, I'm anxious. It's like, why is it so loud?
Yeah.
It's not, Lauren. It's not loud at all. Oh, okay. You know, so, you know, we're all unique, weird people. We're all weird people. So we just trying to all work together on it a little bit. But I think it's fantastic that you've chosen to use a platform and be honest about things. And I think you'll be surprised how many people you do help, or if you don't already know how many people you help by just saying like, I struggle, but here I am still doing stuff.
Yeah, that was one of the big things for me. I had a follower, fan, friend. His name's Casey Ward. Okay. He's actually like helping. We have a giveaway running right now to build our platform up, and he sent us. He's like, I'll send you 3 Project 2020 cards. He sent us 7. And I go, Casey, why'd you send that much? And he's already sent me like a huge box of Mariner cards and stuff. And I go, why'd you do that? And he's like, because he's like, I know you deal with some mental health stuff. And he's like, I like how you just keep going on. You don't let it affect you. And I was like, it affects me every day. Yeah. I just choose not to let it. Like, I've always been the person who can get out of bed. Like, I know laying in bed is the worst thing I can do.
I have dogs.
Yeah.
There's no like, do I want to stay in bed? They're like, I have to pee. So yeah, I mean, honestly, that's when I first got my first dog. It was like I was starting to feel like I was struggling. My good friend had cancer and unfortunately was in the hospice, and I knew it was getting close. So I got Fenway. This was 10 years ago, and she's my best bud. But yeah, there was no choice. Like, I don't really feel like cleaning up pee, so I should probably get up. Once you get up, a little sun on your face, or in Seattle, rain for almost all the time, you know, it helps. You just get moving. And sometimes that whole fake it till you make it thing is so real in my world. Like sometimes you just have to go through the motions and just trust that you're going to start to get there. You'll get there. And it could take 3 years, but I always tell people to remember, like, what if like tomorrow's the day things start to get better and you just didn't trust that? You know, like you just never know. And it's the same with careers. It's the same with money issues. It's the same with, you know, dating. It's the same with any of that stuff. Like, what if tomorrow's the day? And I try and remind myself that, like, tomorrow might be the day that suddenly, you know, I don't know. I meet a doctor that I'm able to really like connect with, and suddenly we find a way to get my anxiety down to almost nothing. What if tomorrow's the day that, you know, I get an opportunity of a lifetime? You never know. So yeah, half the battle is definitely getting up though, and getting through days. Sometimes it's less so for me now, but yeah, there was definitely times where I was like, oh my God.
I have to deal with this crap today. Like those kind of days, those are the worst. And I'm so grateful to have Abe, because I would have never, one, done this podcast, and 2, he can deal with my neurotic ass like completely, because I'm sometimes all over the place. And I'm like texting him 1,000 times because he does, because I'm not a tech person. So Abe cuts everything, gets it all up for us. I'm just the person that like talks a lot and does some social media.
Gabe's got a lot of work to do between the two of us tonight, so sorry.
No, it's okay.
He's like, well, I have nothing to do for the next 20 hours.
No, I definitely enjoy like conversations like this because I think so I was born in Nepal and I grew up in like a very separate, like almost like an isolated place, right? Like where being brown, I guess, Asian in any way, the topic of like mental health is like super taboo. And like even within your family, like it's almost like looked down upon, as in like if you say like, oh, I'm going to the therapist, like, you know, your grandparents, your parents, your cousins, everybody's like why, what's wrong with you, like all that stuff, right?
I've heard that in different cultures, like it's a very
and you know, like in a way I think like social media has been like really beneficial for people that are like isolated in that way because you know, like me growing up, I'm 25, we didn't really have like, yeah, we had like internet, we had all that stuff, but like nobody was coming out and talking about stuff like this. So like, you know, even when I did think like, okay, maybe something is wrong with me, or like there was a point in like college where I was like struggling a little bit, where like I like didn't leave my apartment for the entire semester. Like I just, and you know, part of it, like not bringing that up with my parents or like anyone, was not seeing that as being normal and like not really knowing that other people also deal with it. Right. And I think over the years it's gotten, you know, a lot better. Yeah, I mean, like for me, like I don't know if it's just in my head that like I just don't pay attention to it, or because like Mitch knows, like I'm always like my motor is always running, like from the minute I wake up till I go to sleep, like I'm just doing something. And so then I think, I don't know, maybe it's just like a thing that distracts me, but it's helped like immensely to the point where, you know, I'm just not like, I don't think about stuff that would stress me out or like make me anxious, like whatever. But that's, I don't know, like I've never thought about it because like I'm always so into like whatever I'm doing, and I'm always down to do anything, like, right? Like Mitch and I would have never met if I hadn't just been like, yeah, I'll just do it, whatever. But yeah, like now, like hearing you guys talk about it and like think about it, I'm like, maybe.
Well, okay. I think it's good. I just, you know, to open conversation because I mean, you never know when it might strike you, and then being able to draw back on, you know, like, okay, this has happened to other people and there's a way out of it, or, you know, there's a way out of it. It you know, for me, it's seeing people that I look up to and hearing them struggle. It's like, oh, well, what? Like you struggle too? Like, or maybe they don't, but they, you know, the more conversation, the better. Like I can't, for me, I can't stress that enough in terms of my own journey. Like it was people that were brave and vulnerable before me that allowed me to start feeling more comfortable being vulnerable. Because I started thinking, what if I'm the voice that those people were for me to someone else? And that's when it gets bigger. And it's like you said, like and I hear that, sorry, they're going to get loud for a second.
Okay.
Relax. My friend's coming to relieve them for potty duties, so.
But you were the voice. You're the voice for me to like be able to talk about my stuff, and I'm truly grateful of that. Like, because otherwise, I probably would not bring it up because it is an uncomfortable thing.
It passed on to you. Someone now you've done it for someone else. So
I'll talk to anybody about it. It's something. Because there's such a misconception with mental health that drives me nuts, that people think you're weak, like you're weak-minded because you have these thoughts that pop in your head that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy of love, that you're never going to be successful. And it's the opposite, that like you're I think everybody's strong in their own way.
Sure.
But I think you're strong, that you're strong-minded, that you can deal with it, that you can get up every day and go. Yeah, I have these thoughts. I deal with this. Like, I'm not the only person in the world that deals with mental health. and you're not the only one. And like, and everybody has their own form of anxiety, and everybody's probably been a little depressed. It's just, it's something we deal with. Humans, we are flawed individuals. Like, we're not perfect.
Yeah, and the way that, you know, the world is changing, and especially 2020, you know, like I think more and more people are experiencing like anxiety, uncertainty. You know, I have a couple friends that are new moms that are like, this just got real with, you know, COVID and being home with my kids and worrying about that. And, you know, whereas in college, I was the weird one, always anxious. And they're like, just chill. And now, you know, they're experiencing some of that. And I by no means am thrilled to hear that they're struggling with that, but also, you know, glad that more and more people are feeling comfortable to say, like, I don't feel okay right now. Because if there's one thing we know, suicide rates are going up. And it's not a parallel line. You don't necessarily get depressed and end your life. You don't necessarily have anxiety and end your life. But the fact that it's still happening makes me think we need to let people know that, you know, we need to keep talking about it. Because to me, suicide is not weakness by any means. It is actual strength, and it's just trying to get out of being uncomfortable. It's not always about wanting to end your life. It's about wanting to end suffering. And you know, the more that we can end suffering by just being compassionate to one another, I think we're headed in the right direction. And I'm really proud of some of the initiatives you see going around. In Canada, Bell Let's Talk Week is big. You know, there's people trying to make a difference, and they've made a difference for me. And yeah, I mean, we have a ways to go still, but we've come a long way too. So yeah, it's really cool. The people before me and you that have decided to take the scary plunge when it wasn't as easy. Like, I feel like it's easier now than it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago.
I would say even 10 years ago, because I'm a veteran, and 22 vets die a day from suicide. That's a whole platoon. That's a lot of men. And especially in the military, like, you talk about like your feelings, suicidal thoughts or anything, like, that's like a weakness. And like, when I started, I entered in 2011 and I got out in 2015. By the time I was out in 2015, people were finally starting, like 2014, we lost a soldier, our company did. And then we started finally talking about suicide and like those kind of thoughts. And some of the guys were like, that's weak. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, they're like, it's weak that he died, like killed himself. And I'm like, it's not. I was like, he was suffering. He just wanted it to go away. I was like, you don't know what's going on in somebody else's mind, how they feel. We all see this world different. This world could be a cruel mistress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're doing a great thing by talking about that as a veteran too. I mean, that's something I can never speak about. Like, obviously I'm not a veteran, but it is obviously something that, you know, people are struggling with. And again, I just think it's fantastic anytime someone's willing to just be like, you know what, I'm going to expose myself in hopes that it helps someone else, because it does. It always, I shouldn't say never, but most of the time I don't regret being open. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but you know, it's been good in a lot of ways. It's been good. It's been helpful for me to normalize my situation. And it's been helpful to have conversations like this with you where, you know, we get a chance to talk and, you know, learn about one another and maybe have other people start to open conversation. But yeah, I mean, it's really great. And it's good to see it start to collide with sports a little bit. You know, athletes being really open and honest about that.
Well, that's why I'm like, so I grew up a Packers fan. Like, I didn't have a choice, but that's why, like, Brett Favre will always be like my favorite player, because he's now like starting to become more open about his concussion history and like how he doesn't remember part of his life. But even during his like playing career, like, he stepped up and was like, yeah, I'm a pain pill addict. He's like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. And then like when he got caught cheating on his wife, he's like, yeah, I'm an adulterer. Like, that's why I've always like didn't enjoy the decisions he's made, but like respect him as a human, that he could come out and be like, I fucked up. And but like I'm human.
I tried to, you know, and it's not an excuse to do things, but at the same time, like, again, we're all just trying to do the best we can, right? And you know, the fact that he's talked about concussions now and forgetting a portion was like, no shit, he took painkillers. Like, I don't know about you, but if I got like steamrolled by giant men like every week, I mean, I need Advil most days, and that doesn't happen. So, you know, like you can see how it happens. They have it at their you know, it's very accessible. I think we learned that a little bit with even the Tyler Skaggs tragedy. Like, you know, it's so unfortunate, but it's just, you know, it's this whole like keep quiet thing, you know? So
Right. No, it's keep quiet, and it's crazy to like think about like Brett's career. Like it was early on too, when he got like came out with like his addiction, and then he goes on and breaks like the record for the most games ever played consecutively by an NFL player, and he did that all without pain pills. And I'm like, how did you do that? Because like for me to get through my day, I need ibuprofen and like that kind of stuff. And like
I'm like, what's the daily max of Tylenol? Am I there yet? Like, you know, like yeah, I don't know what happened after 26. But after 26, I suddenly was like, wow, I need a lot more ibuprofen than I ever planned on. But yeah, you know, like, I don't know. I find it's easy to judge, but it's way better when you can just be like, okay, think about for our entertainment and for a lot of money. I'm not saying like for him, but for a lot of money, but for also our entertainment. We've watched athletes get pummeled, and we get mad when they don't play hard enough, and we're pissed when they miss a tackle, or we're mad when they get sacked. We don't think about the fact that their very soft brain within liquid in a head that's not meant to be bouncing around, helmet or not, is bouncing around. And the damage that they're receiving that we knew very little about for a long period of time is impacting their life. That I feel like the least we can do is find a little compassion when we start to learn the effects that had, you know, like
they'll only know so much, like so little.
Absolutely.
Like that's the most frustrating part. Like with me going through like something, like I've convinced myself, and like I've had doctors try to convince me. I'm convinced like I'm on that CTE like list, like the pre-CTE. Like I like memory loss, anxiety, impulse control, like all the headaches, like all that crazy stuff. And like I wish there was like a way like we could see the brain now to not prevent it, but to help out these athletes, these alpha men who they're too scared to speak out. Like now we're starting to get guys who are like, after they've seen Junior Seau and all the others athletes go through concussion issues, and that's like so great that we're seeing it now. But I wish it happened 20 years ago, so we'd still have some of these athletes around.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to take it more serious, and you know, the concussion protocols, and it's getting there. And I think we have a long way to go. But the fact that concussion is thrown around as a word more often than it ever has is a great start. You know, and yeah, I have a lot of hope for the future, because I think those that have donated their brains to science after passing and things like that, you know, we'll get there. It's just like with everything else in health, you know, that we've, you know, 80 years ago could not handle, and now we're equipped to handle. I do trust there's a lot of people that are a whole hell of a lot smarter than me out there that know how to actually like find ways to deal with this. So yeah, I you know, at the end of the day, I am really hopeful for mental health and the direction it's headed. I really am. So
perfect. I think that's the perfect place to end the mental health conversation. Agreed. And I think I definitely think we'll have you back to talk about it even more once we get a bigger platform. But I have to get us out of like that deep conversation mood.
Sounds good.
Have a list of rapid fire questions. I'm going to just like try to read them off as fast as I can. First answer you have. You ready? What's your favorite food?
Muffin.
Who's your favorite athlete to draw?
Ken Griffey Jr.
That a girl. That's my favorite baseball player of all time. Who's your favorite softball player?
Jenny Finch. I panicked.
Beer or wine?
What? Beer.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
IPAs or?
IPAs.
Okay. Who's your favorite Red Sox?
Brock Holt, but now he's on a Red Sox, so I can't. I don't want to talk about it. I'm still sad about it. Go on.
He's a Brewer now, right? Yeah.
Really sad.
What are your dogs' names? Why'd you name them those names, and how old are they?
Fenway's 10. I named her Fenway because I love the Red Sox. Shay is 2. I named her Shay because I love that name. And after, I want to alienate my Yankees fans, but I wanted to name it after a stadium that didn't like the Yankees. You're making me alienate all my awesome Yankees customers. No, and I just love I love the name Shay. I think it's adorable.
And then last question, what's your ideal ball game food?
Oh, easy. Soft pretzel IPA. I get it everywhere, no matter what sport. I need my soft pretzel, light salt, or they don't do light salt, so I have to like flick a bunch of it off. And an IPA. Do you see how much salt they put on those?
Yeah.
You're like, that is a salt lick, but that's fine. So but it's kind of gross with none of it, so you got to flick some of it off. The actual best soft pretzel in any stadium I've ever had so far, T-Mobile Park. Those things, I have a photo I'll find it and I'll text it to you. The little middle knot is like my favorite thing in the world ever. And they do like the barbarian version of the pretzel part. It is straight carb dough for days. Like, it is so good. And I get 2 every time I'm there. I gain like 10 pounds in one game there. Easy. Soft pretzel all day. All day. I don't like hot dogs that much, but soft pretzels all day.
Oh, I love hot dogs. Their garlic fries at T-Mobile are the best.
When you're eating them. Then
when you're eating
later,
them.
you're like, whoa, yeah.
Like, what is this? But definitely, like I said, we'll have to have you back. I was telling Dave, I'm like, I'm down in Portland. We'll fly him out and we'll meet at T-Mobile for a game.
You bet. As soon as we're allowed to be back, I'm
finally. Because Abe's in Chicago. I mean, he's like, what are you, like, 5-minute walk from Wrigley?
Yeah. I live about 2 blocks, not quite 5 minutes, but like it's literally right here.
Well, I will let you know when I'm at the next Cubs game and when any of us are allowed to be at games. But it's been awesome chatting with you guys. I love that you had me. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for your bravery and vulnerability. I know that was one of the first times you so good for you. That's really awesome.
God damn it! I suck at this job.
Go ahead.
Yes, you can check out my art. It's LaurenTaylorIllustrations.com. My Instagram, Lauren Taylor Illustrations, and my Twitter is LT Illustrations. Can't fit it all in there. But yeah, I release new originals on Instagram usually first, and then prints officially licensed MLB, MLBPA, and now a Cooperstown collection are available on my website.
Awesome. And you can always find this at Just Mitchin on Twitter, Just _Mitchin _Mitchin24 on Instagram, and then we're on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you can find your podcast. Sorry, you're gonna have a weird cut in your the podcast at the end because I totally forgot to.
Don't worry about it.
Exit the show. So everybody, have a great day. Thank you for listening. And goodbye.